Sure. So I am happy to be here, happy to see so many familiar faces. I know I get to touch base with a lot of you all in the community. I'm very excited to answer anyone's questions that may be new to joining this or maybe new to hearing about Hollywood 2.0. So the PowerPoint, as Brittany is getting up, it really kind of starts on the overview, like what is the Hollywood 2.0? So as many of you know, Hollywood 2.0 is inspired by the mental health system in Trieste, Italy, where the focus is much more on one's purpose and meaning, as opposed to what we focus on here in the United States, which is your treatment largely revolves around your diagnosis, symptom reduction, and a decrease in challenging behaviors. So we are trying to implement and create that culture shift here within DMH, which is no small feat. I think there has been a lot of questions about the target population for Hollywood 2.0. So the Hollywood Mental Health Cooperative is comprised of field-based teams that I oversee and the clinic that Carolyn oversees and FSP. And so kind of the innovative piece of the Hollywood Mental Health Cooperative is it's a combined treatment team of the outpatient clinic with the field teams, which may not sound very innovative, but in DMH land, the field teams are in one division, outpatient is another division, and we're not able to respond as immediately or as flexibly as we would like to when we're kind of addressing someone's needs. As many of you know, folks with severe mental illness, their pathways to recovery are non-linear, right? So they may bounce from a field team to a clinic team. And as a department, we really need to find ways to be flexible and kind of serving people at various parts of their recovery. So that's the Hollywood Mental Health Cooperative. And in terms of the target population, I'll invite Dr. Rabb to share a little bit more on that.
And forgive me, but we are still working to receive the PowerPoint. The ether is.
Oh, you didn't get it yet?
No, Carolyn will look for it for me.
I don't know if I had the recent one, Carla.
Sorry, Dr. Rabb.
No, that's okay. Well, while you guys are hunting for the PowerPoint, I can talk a little bit about the target population. DMH provides specialty mental health services. What that really means is we're serving people with serious mental illness, also called SMI. In a very general sense, these refer to diagnoses of psychotic disorders, bipolar disorder, and either major depression with psychotic symptoms or treatment-resistant depression. These are kind of the usual disorders that kind of fall in this category. But that being said, you know, SMI can also include anxiety disorders, eating disorders, personality disorders. If the degree of functional impairment is severe, typically, you know, mild to moderate mental illness is managed by non-specialty mental health, so other community-based providers. Before it would come to us, it would have to be the functional impairments would have to be severe for it to come to the DMH level. But SMI, generally speaking, are you know, long-term illnesses that have substantial functional impairment over multiple different symptom domains. This includes gainful employment, poor social support, repeated psychiatric hospitalizations, chronic homelessness, incarceration, and co-occurring substance use disorders. But again, the definition of disorders that immediately kind of meets that are schizophrenia spectrum and bipolar spectrum illnesses. That being said, mild to moderate illnesses can also reach the DMH level, but the functional impairments have to be pretty severe.
All right, and then I got this up and running. So thank you, Dr. Rabb. And the Hollywood Mental Health Cooperative. So currently the Hollywood Mental Health Cooperative is serving 765 clients in the Hollywood area right now. So I wanted to give some housing updates. As many of you know, we have a variety of housing sites that are currently online. So we have Mark Twain, which is an interim housing site that we're partnering with SSG. That opened just back in September, so it hasn't even been open for a year, and it's pretty much remained full or with only about 2 to 5 rooms vacant. So right now, all 56 beds are full, and there is a current wait list. Another you know, kind of important piece to our housing resources is typically our interim housing resources are allocated to DMH only providers. And so what we wanted to make sure was happening in the Hollywood community was that Hollywood providers that are also providing mental health services and field-based services for their clients, that they can refer in to these housing sites as well. Hollywood Walk of Fame is another interim site. There is no provider on that site, so anyone referring in has to be field capable and checking in with their client. Right, well, when I did this presentation last week, there was 30 beds, which all were full. And as of 4:15 yesterday, we added 10 more beds. So we have folks on the wait list that are already set to move into those beds. And you know, we kind of keep a wait list for folks that, you know, may be a good fit for Hollywood Walk of Fame. We also are partnered with the New Dawn Boarding Care. This is a 94-bed boarding care in East Hollywood. And we have 79 out of the 94 beds full, and we actually have clients on the wait list and folks ready to move into those vacant beds as well. An exciting thing that's happening with the New Dawn is that we are working on the HERCS contract. So those that were a part of the community stakeholder groups may have remembered the highly enriched residential care setting work group. So we are partnering with a New Dawn and currently in contract negotiations where, you know, the purpose of that contract is to make sure that there's meaningful activities, opportunities for people to get out into the community all throughout someone's day, right? So my teams are there now providing groups during the week, but they don't have the capacity to be there all day. They also don't have the capacity to be there on the weekends. So this will be enhanced staffing to provide those resources with an occupational therapist, more recreational therapists on site to kind of make that become a reality. And community engagement is a huge piece of Hollywood 2.0. As the department, we recognize that DMH cannot serve this target population solely by itself, and we need the help of the community. We wouldn't even have the housing sites that we have online now if it wasn't the help from Hollywood Forward and Heart Forward. So as Brittany mentioned, we have regular community events. Our next H2O provider meeting is May 1st. Our community event is in June. I don't know the exact date. I think you mentioned it, Brittany, but more to come on that. And then we are also in the process of contract negotiations with IDEO for our Hollywood 2.0 media campaign. So this is a timeline that Hollywood Forward helped design, and it kind of shows where we are in the project timeline, right? So the first year was largely a community stakeholder process. This year we had some initial housing resources come online. We will have to modify this timeline because the supported employment contract, the UCC respite solicitation, and some of the training contracts will likely be executed in fiscal year 24-25, not 23-24. And then we hope to have all of the Hollywood 2.0 components fully operational by fiscal year 25-26. Now, obviously, we would have liked to have all of these components operational this year with Rand, who will be our academic evaluator, already online. But our contracting process is quite lengthy, as many of you, well, I've shared with many of you. And so we are kind of diligently trying to execute them as fast as we can. So these are the H2O contracts that kind of make up the key components of Hollywood 2.0, right? So we have a contract with Hollywood Forward as our community liaison, the Fountain House Clubhouse, that we executed that contract back in December. And so they have hired their clubhouse director, and they're still in their short-term pop-up space. But they do have they have found a space for a long-term space and plan to be fully operational in July. Rand, we are in final contract negotiations. We hope that that contract is executed within the month, fingers crossed. As mentioned, the media campaign, the highly enriched residential care, these are currently in contract negotiations as well. Supported employment and the UCC respite are solicitations that will still need to be posted, and Hollywood Forward usually, you know, lets their members know when these solicitations have posted if anyone's interested in applying for them. And the training and consultation, which will largely come from our partners in Italy. That will likely be in fiscal year 24-25. We also plan to have like an H2O champion training, right? So the culture shift is not only happening within the Department of Mental Health, but needs to happen among the H2O provider group that meets regularly. So these trainings will be open to a select variety of the H2O providers from our community-based organizations as well. And so some of the challenges with Hollywood 2.0, like I mentioned, the extensive contracting process, that has really been a thorn in our side, which we are constantly trying to move these contracts forward. A lot of these new key components, we're building these programs from the ground up, which takes a lot of thought, a lot of bringing groups together with subject matter expertise. So these things take time. Also, contractors' ability to hire expeditiously. I think we all know some of the staffing challenges that we are facing, and property acquisition in Hollywood. That's definitely a challenge I'm sure we're all aware of. Opportunities, so our use of delegated authorities with the emergency declaration. So we used emergency appointments to hire a lot of our new staff. Right now, out of the 54 new items that we got with the Hollywood 2.0 pilot, we have 48 staff hired. So we actually did a pretty good job staffing up. The last few items or vacancies that we have are for kind of harder to fill positions that are kind of hard to fill regardless of whether it was in the department or not. Sole source for contracting has also been extremely helpful in helping us move contracts forward expeditiously. However, I think some folks are confused why we can't sole source for every single contract. And so if we have multiple entities that are well equipped to provide a service, we have to go the solicitation route to make sure that everyone has an equitable and fair chance of, bidding for the contract. And special step placements have helped us recruit staff. So having people, in DMH positions, if I'm a social worker, there might be 12 steps. And so every year you get a step where your pay increases. So we've been able to bring people on with higher steps if they have experience in jobs, and so that they don't feel like if they're coming to the department, they're taking a pay cut. And then the next steps with the pilot are the evaluation component. Super, super important for us to get Rand on board like yesterday. So we're just really working very hard to get that contract executed and the remaining contracts executed so that we can have all of the key components up by fiscal year 25-26. I think that's all for my presentation. And we could go to questions, but I just wanted to ask Carolyn and Dr. Rabb if there's anything that I may have missed.
No, I think you summarized it really well. Hollywood 2.0 is kind of this super unique project where we're kind of building a system within the system that's actually fully integrated from the street to the clinics, tied in with housing and all sorts of services that really promote purposeful living. It's pretty exciting stuff.
And I agree. And we're really trying to bring in the changes through CalAIM of removing the barriers to accessing services and really trying to put that in place. Because I know sometimes it's really challenging to access the different programs that DMH offers. So that's one thing too. And just really looking at providing comprehensive treatment and comprehensive connection with all of you and with our providers to meet the needs of our clients and the communities. So it's been really exciting.
Thank you. Thank you. I would say that all of this rolls off your lips so quickly and so easily at DMH, and it's much more difficult for us to absorb and uptake it in the community. So thank you for taking time and repeating sometimes some of the information that you convey elsewhere, because the more times we hear it and the more differently we hear the same kind of points, I think the community is starting to understand more directly and fully what the promise of H2O will be and what our impact will be and the timing, etc. So more communication is always better, and you're always welcome to come here and make more of a pitch or clarify anything. I will just ask that folks either start raising their hand or pop questions into the chat box for us to review. This is a time where Hollywood gets special direct connection in with DMH Leadership. And if there is something on your mind that you're curious about, confused about, or you want to applaud, they are all ears. I do have to say that working beside DMH for 10 plus years, this is truly unique. And as much frustration as we carry in the community about the desperate need of people on the streets, this is an unusual and very positive development in the flow of things that DMH is here listening to us. When I first started at Hollywood Forward, 3 years ago, the reputation was that DMH was absent, was silent, was not part of the discourse or the solution. And I think that when I hear providers on the street talking about the benefit of the H2O field response teams, it's done a 180. And so I will just start by applauding and thanking DMH for that definite improvement. No matter what, that's not going to be enough. I think as Hollywood, you recognize, everybody here recognizes that the need is so great. We're going to have to be creative in other ways. It's DMH H2O plus all of our efforts collectively to take care of the target population. So I am really interested on behalf of Hollywood Forward of figuring out alternative solutions to support what DMH is doing through H2O and build up beyond that our provider capacity to meet the need. So a lot of conversations happening behind the scenes on that. If anyone is ever game to converse with me on that, definitely drop me a line. I'll put my email in the chat box. And hopefully this rambling has bought you enough time to get a question or two together. And I welcome those to you now. I also want to tee up earlier, I saw Jillian from the Clubhouse. Oh, she's on. And Jillian,
I know, I just saw that too.
We would love to hear from you and welcome you to Hollywood 2.0 and the team here.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be a part of this. I'm still learning. If you have questions for me, I can try to answer them, but I don't have anything prepared to talk about other than just super excited to partner in LA and work together to make the world a better place.
Thank you, Jillian. And were you able to discuss your role or explain where you are in the H2O?
Okay.
You did.
No, I didn't say anything. That was the first time I spoke for this meeting. So, okay, sorry. I'm the director of Fountain House Hollywood, and we are located on Sunset temporarily. Sunset and Wilcox-ish. Schrader, that's the name of the corner. Sorry, Sunset and Schrader. But we will be moving to a permanent location probably after the new year over by Hollywood Forever Cemetery.
Congratulations on the position, Jillian, and welcome to the team.
Clubhouse
plays a very central role. And if we at Hollywood Forward still had our backgrounds for Zoom that were virtual, it would show a map of Hollywood 2.0, and hopefully we'll show you that at some point. And Clubhouse is really at the center of it because we see it as such a vital component of Hollywood 2.0. So thank you for being here and joining us. And I can only imagine how much water you're trying to drink out of the giant fire hose that you have.
I'm a sponge, but I would love that graphic that you just talked about. I'd love to see that and maybe display it for our members as well.
Sounds good. And all of the people on this chat box or this participant list in the Zoom, we are all your allies in trying to stand this up. So look to anyone here for help, suggestions, critiques, shortcuts, etc. Because we want Clubhouse to be the best it can.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jillian. And I guess Hollywood 2.0 is clear as crystal for everyone else because I don't see any hands up or questions.
I think Kathleen had a question in the chat. How many health homes have been created and how many in total do you anticipate and where will they be located? So, I think this idea of health homes where folks feel comfortable getting their case management, mental health, and physical health needs, like I mentioned, this will not only lay with DMH. And so that's why we created the Hollywood 2.0 provider group, because we have many of our partners that really have created health homes for individuals in Hollywood, such as My Friend's Place, the Center, Hollywood Food Coalition. And so
we can just turn on that bigger thing.
Oh, sorry. I think Allison, you might not be muted.
Oh no, when did I get on muted?
No problem. So, we are recognizing that health homes have been in existence before Hollywood 2.0 even started, and really kind of bolstering up our partnerships with our community-based organizations and kind of brainstorming about ways we can all kind of grow together with the pilot.
Good question. Oh, and thanks, Clarissa, for putting in the chat box the community map. And I do see one from Justin in the chat box. Thanks for the presentations. Apologies for the basic question. No problem on basic questions. Carla, when all this is up and running, can you describe the vision for how someone who is currently on the street, who may not be connected to a case manager, but suffering from serious mental illness, would ideally move through the system, and what the optimal outcome would look like?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the optimal outcome really depends on the client, right? But so let's say you have someone who is currently on the street, chronically homeless, may have schizophrenia, be out of care for 10 to 20 years. You could refer into the Hollywood Mental Health Cooperative. They would be connected to the multidisciplinary team where they can work with case managers, social workers, doctors, nurses to kind of address the variety of needs that may have gone unaddressed for the past couple of decades. We want to be able to get people in low barrier housing as soon as we can, right? So that's why we have Hollywood Walk of Fame and Mark Twain on board, and constantly adding beds to Hollywood Walk of Fame because the need is so great with wait lists. So it may be that someone gets into Mark Twain. We start working with them in Mark Twain. We start to kind of assess their needs a little bit more. This is the first time we've seen someone in a housing site. How able are they to take care of their kind of basic needs? How able are they to live independently? And let's say for this individual, we noticed that they need a lot of help, right? They might need help being reminded to shower. They may need to be reminded about meal times, and things of that nature where they need a little bit more support than Mark Twain could offer. So we may want to move them to a New Dawn, which is 24-hour care, boarding care, right? And so if someone goes from Mark Twain to a New Dawn, at that point, we want to start working on really, I think from day one, we want to start working on, goals outside of just housing and medication management and things of those natures. We want to make sure that their basic needs are met, but we also want to understand, what are their goals, right? So what do they hope to achieve in 2 to 3 years? And what does that look like for them? And constantly having this conversation with folks from the time we meet them, from the time they go to Mark Twain, for the time they go to a New Dawn, and that may change as they get a roof over their head, they have more, access to income. What they may not have thought possible while they were out on the streets may look very different from what's happening once they get to a New Dawn. We want to make sure that folks have things to do during the day, right? I know a lot of us can't imagine just being stuck in a room and not having anything to do and watching TV all day or just smoking cigarettes. So opportunities to get out in the community, do things they like, go to the museum, go to the beach. I mean, we took clients to the beach that said they hadn't been there in decades, and it was just kind of an amazing experience. And just making sure people have access to these activities that I think sometimes we take for granted, and it can be pretty isolating for folks with severe mental illness. So that's one example. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear about the beach field trip, and hope sunscreen's around. Okay, let's go to Anali, and then I see Jones in the chat box.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for presenting today. I know I've worked with DMH before, and I know how much work you all have been doing on the inside. And so thank you for trying to be flexible and innovative. We really just benefit from that so much in the community. My question is, just kind of thinking ahead, I guess, what are some of the gaps that you're noticing as a community that we can start thinking about and help to fill? I mean, I think you've been talking about some of the things about not having enough activities, for instance, at Mark Twain, but I think the community also wants to do more. And I think of myself as a service provider and saying, what else can I think about in terms of programming to help fill gaps? So I'd love to kind of hear from you all.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've kind of discussed and what would be really helpful, I know Brittany is kind of spearheading this, is kind of increasing the mental health infrastructure among our community-based partners. So we want to have these resources available to everyone. But we want to make sure that community-based organizations are able to meet the needs of the clients if they have to be field-based, or, you know, be able to get certain components that maybe aren't always included in like the program structuring. So I think thinking about that is really important so that we can serve more people. I'm trying to think, what else, Dr. Rob and Carolyn, may I be missing?
The social co-op or some,
Oh yeah, a a social cooperative, that was like a huge thing in Trieste. We were kind of surprised that during the community stakeholder process, that wasn't like one of the #1 things voted on. But I think that's extremely important because that's also just the kind of connection between community. And so having opportunities like that in Hollywood, I think would be amazing, because we are having, well, I don't know if that was on the presentation, but we do, you know, for supported employment, we are kind of beefing up employment assistance, and, you know, Fountain House will kind of be having their transitional employment unit up and running when they go operational. So this is the time that we want to start getting business owners, you know, acclimated to what we're doing with Hollywood 2.0, and, you know, include them in this effort.
Yeah, and as many fun activities and other events that we can kind of leverage. I think people, you know, not all of our resources are fully active, which means that there are times when people are just in their rooms and, you know, we have a limited set of activities, but there's still a lot of downtime, and an idle mind, a lot of people start using meth, drugs, and then it kind of starts bleeding into facilities. So if we can have healthier alternatives to keep people engaged and active, I think that would be a huge help.
Yeah, once the media campaign is on board, I think we want to make the pitch for how people can get involved. We want to kind of like think of different opportunities where community members can volunteer or get involved at some of the components that we have up and running, and even in just discussions around components that still haven't come on board, like the UCC respite.
and I looked to Joan's question in the chat box about the number of outreach teams you have on the weekends and after hours, and how many may be planned in the future.
So FFP has on after-hour crisis response for their clients, but DMH, in response to Proposition 1, will be moving to, like, we'll have an on-call system built in to Hollywood 2.0. So more to come on the rollout of that and what that will actually look like. But I think an important thing too is that sometimes folks are like, well, you know, things that are happening on the weekend, or if someone was here on the weekend, then we could solve this. And so some of the things that are happening on the weekends are the same things that we're struggling to find solutions with during the week. And that is really problems related to infrastructure. So even if someone can respond on the weekend, if they don't have a place for someone to go immediately, it's not necessarily helpful, right? And so I think those are the sort of infrastructure we as a community need to kind of think about in terms of being able to respond appropriately, and not just, you know, the only thing we can do is like hospitalize someone on the weekend, right? There's a lot of folks that don't need that, and that may not be the best response, right? So I think that's what we're trying to create also with the UCC respite, so that, you know, if someone doesn't need to go on a hold, they could go to the peer respite center, you know, if that's something they may need. But just more opportunities in infrastructure related to that, I think, is a helpful discussion for us as a community.
The respite and recovery center will also provide a lot of weekend and kind of after hours coverage, kind of a place to go to get a little bit of a break and wait until the main team to come back on, you know, as the week starts. It's kind of going to be, you know, we anticipate it to be kind of like the beating heart that's like keeping everything going, you know, when the primary team isn't there.
Thank you. I'm looking for any other questions or anything that hasn't been raised yet about Hollywood 2.0, about how Hollywood 2.0 fits with Hollywood Forward or your agency. Anything in mind on those fronts? Anything about the relative territory of Department of Mental Health versus maybe the Department of Public Health on the substance use side. I will say, just to kind of promote a conversation around that quickly, that the Department of Mental Health is different and distinct from the Department of Public Health, which under Public Health includes the Substance Abuse Prevention Control Department or Division. And one of the innovations of Hollywood 2.0 is like a higher network matrix between health departments. And so DMH and DPH teams are working more closely together in Hollywood. One innovation that's come by way of that connection is the SENS team. And Carla, I wonder if you wouldn't mention a little bit more about the SENS unit.
Yeah, so we currently have a SENS provider, which is a contracted provider with DPH that comes out once a week to a new dawn. And the SENS provider provides psychoeducation groups related to substance use disorders. They meet with people one-on-one. They can get them connected to residential treatment if that's a route that someone wants to take. So we are meeting with public health to try and get the same SENS provider at Mark Twain and Hollywood Walk of Fame as well, so that there is a SENS provider at every housing site. We are also trying to just secure a treatment bed so that we pay for a bed regardless of whether someone's in it or not, so that if someone is interested in residential treatment, and as many of you know, that sometimes is a very small window where people are agreeable, we want to be able to act on that as opposed to going through an arduous intake process for someone who's ready to go into treatment. And then we're also talking internally about developing contingency management programs at all of our housing sites for those with co-occurring substance use disorders.